Hello. This is Jamesetta James, your host from the Change Builds Authenticity podcast. I am here to talk to you all about Change Builds Authenticity. Change Builds Authenticity podcast will transform your being by stepping into authenticity. Get ready to unravel, walk in freedom, and renew your own spirit. Becoming authentic starts with walking in your truth. May the life that you live be an example of how you show up in the world. Our mission here at Change Builds Authenticity Podcast is just that. CHANGE. It is the method used to help individuals transform their life, change your mindset, humble your spirit, aim to achieve and adjust your life accordingly, be nice to others, be grateful, and have an attitude of gratitude. Empower others by telling your story. This is the Change Builds Authenticity Podcast. We have a guest, Rick Ewing, and he will come to the platform to talk to us about living his life, a lifelong medicinal chemist and learner. He's going to come and talk to us about how he became authentic through his own story. Come on through, Rick, and let's talk about your story. Again, this is the Change Builds Authenticity Podcast. Here we go.
All right. Well, thanks, Jamesetta. And so, one, I have to say it was a real pleasure to learn your story, when we met, at Bio and really come across your journey and what brought you to that place, right? And so when we talk about, change, right, I think that we have these moments in our life and we think about, well, what brought us here, right? What brought us to this place? And I kind of had the thought on that as I'm here in Boston and was fortunate, as I always think I am, to be asked to, present here at a conference, right? And so there's this very scientific side to what I do, and getting deep in science might bore your audience a little bit, although I can always go in that direction. But I think what's more important is to realize your place in the present, right? And as I think about my journey, the one theme that I would say that really went against most advice that I got was to actually accept possibilities, really to say yes to opportunities that you didn't understand. And, I come from a background, it's very academic. I went through the life sciences. I ended up, choosing chemistry, maybe chemistry chose me, went to graduate school. And in that environment, you're really taught to focus. And so you enter a career where that's the mantra. And I very quickly was fortunate to be presented with new ways to think, new potential opportunities that actually were casted to me as, well, I don't know that anybody else wants to do this, but you seem approachable, you seem nice, maybe you'll do it, right? And so I said yes to those. And I kind of look back and think that these are the most important things, asked to run a symposium, right? A lot of work, but actually through that, I met a lot of cool people, a lot of graduate students with the passion to, see their future in front of them. Fortunate, never saw this coming, but Nobel laureates who were very influential on our staff and on graduate students and myself. And certainly throughout the years met a number of influential professors. And I never saw that when I said yes to running a symposium. It just sounds like hard work, right? But it turned out to be incredibly useful. As well, I've had other opportunities like that I can always get into through your questions. But I think that one of the things that always stuck with me was we had a Nobel laureate who was from Harvard University. His name's E.J. Corey, an incredibly smart man. really vibrant. He's in his 90s and still incredibly vibrant, incredibly deep thinker. And I would always have EJ talk to graduate students at symposium. And the first time I ever asked them to do that, I thought, well, what's EJ going to talk about? Study? Is he going to say like study hard, put in extra time? And what he told them was very simple. He said, you've been prepared for a future that you think will be the same, but that future will constantly change. And he said, the only way to understand the future is to anticipate and be prepared to change whatever it is. And I thought, well, this is the first message he's giving a group that's done nothing but focus on one thing, right? And yet he's being told that forget that. Your life is going to be full of change. He's absolutely right? Because our human story, right, is that we want the world to stay as it is. I mean, that's how humans work, right? I'm most happy if I wake up today and tomorrow and the next day and I know what's coming. But it's actually not true. It's a real fallacy, right? I mean, we really are supposed to embrace change, which is very hard for the human spirit. But I think that if you can live in the present and be comfortable with that and maybe learn from the past, but I would say don't focus on negativity from the past. Just realize that you made it through something and it can carry you forward. Like be ready from the present to the future that will not be the same. And I think there you have the opportunity to accept change, whatever it is, whether it's good, whether it's not, but at least you'd be prepared that things will not always be the same. So anyway, you did introduce me, as a lifelong medicinal chemist. And, I have to say, I've gotten to a point in my career where people, give you awards, because you've been around for a long time. And so I did get an award. It was a good award. It was from the Philadelphia American Chemical Society. It's kind of like a distinguished award for lifelong career. And they were ready, to put down my title. And they said, we're going to put you down Vice President, Head of Chemistry. And I said, no, absolutely not. Those titles have no permanence, right? They're just something that looks good on a business card. I had to say, well, what really am I? And I said, I've had this passion to help human health through drug discovery, to do that with integrity and focus and with patients first. And I also think to do that process, I had to learn. I had to commit to constantly learning because what I'm doing now is nothing like what graduate school prepared me to. And it's actually nothing like what I was doing 3, 5, 10 years ago. And so I had them put down Medicinal Chemist Lifelong Learner. I think that is a title that I can accept and not a title of you reached a certain level in your company and here's your title, right? It's not really what we aspire to, is it? So anyway, that's a long introduction. I'm here, and I'm happy to be on such a show. Gemzetta, you're full of life. So what do you got for me?
I wanted you to really expand about how does chemistry, you've been the chemist, and we're not going to even talk about vice president because like we said, those are titles. Who are you really? When I think about myself and what I enjoy in this here life, I love brilliant individuals. I love to sit at the table, have dinner. Every time I connect with you, you're at dinner.
Right, it's true. I do that tonight. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So let's talk about you're in Boston, one of my favorite cities.
Wonderful.
In the world. Okay. I love Boston because I love lobsters. And right on that Atlantic coast, when I came to Boston, I literally was having a great time eating in the conference area. I believe that was downtown. And you get lobsters and eat cornbread.
Awesome.
We don't lobsters. Awesome. So
Yeah.
I love Boston, and it's a very highly educated environment. And I love to be around brilliant individuals. So let's talk about yourself and what's going on there in Boston. You're saying you at a conference, you at a symposium. I love conferences because it helps with growth internally. Like, what makes you curious? With others, because presenting is not always easy.
Right.
How would you offer advice to anyone who wants to be a part of a conference, who also
Mm.
would like to do a symposium, and not so scientific, but just tell them like what things that they need to focus on to get really involved in this type of presentation for their career growth?
Okay, yeah, there's a couple questions you asked there. The first part, about conferences, right, is you are sharing, what you're doing, right, for a team. I'm doing this for the company, for the research organization. So it's not just my work; it's the whole company's work, the whole company's thought, and I'm just the person that is communicating it. I've learned many styles, and you could detect, I have a slight shyness to myself. And actually, when I started, I was actually incredibly shy. And here I was thrown in a world where you're going to present in front of people, no matter what. And so when I started out, I had the very stilted approach of being very practiced and knowing all my words. And you need to evolve past that, right? You need to be comfortable. You need to realize that people want to listen to you. And so I do none of that anymore. There's no practicing, just make good material. I tend to find jokes out of nowhere rather than think of them on the fly. And I'm sort of known for being able to do that. And I think that brings joy to me, actually, is to be spontaneous in the moment, right? But the process of getting in front of people, if that is your desire, is to ask. Actually, I mean, I didn't ask for this in particular, but in the past, I have sign up as a presenter and try to get accepted. There are many different venues. Honestly, one venue that actually worked for me, which was very interesting, was at one time I was a worship leader. And believe it or not, it's very difficult to get people to read from the podium. And somebody said, "Oh, he presents. Get them to read." and once I Right. And once I read once, I couldn't get off the rotation. Like read every time. And I actually enjoyed it, I have to say. And it's nothing I wrote, of course. It's the Bible. And it's not for me at all, right? It's for the people there. And in a way, it did help me with my skills in a very different way. Right? It wasn't work created by my group. It wasn't some understanding of the literature, but rather just pure reading. And in that moment, I started to very much relax in terms of how I presented and how I perceived my communication. It really is hard to believe, but it was really hard for me at first. And so now it's very natural, no matter what it is, right? Even connecting with people, I think that communication, listening, hearing people's stories, being able to relate your perception and perspective is something that you do learn. And so, back to, conferences, I think especially when you're young, it's just important to take the opportunity to put your name out there and to volunteer. It could be simple as, I was chair of a section of the American Chemical Society. One of the things that we did was we would go to the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, and we would have a morning where young kids would come and be interested in science, and we would do kind of safe science experiments, but also talk to them and talk to them about their interests and kind of explain what we did at their level, right? Those all count as presentation, right? Teaching, learning new things from others, and just the simple process of putting yourself out there is a good place to start, right? I mean, it's easy, of course, to do like a company presentation, but I think volunteerism and presenting can go hand in hand.
Great. So if I would think of authenticity, I would say that you're very great with connecting with others. You do a very good job at that. You seem to be a very kind gentleman. You enjoy people, I would say, and you really like to connect with others. I think that's the authentic part of who you are. However, the great part about who you are is you can hold an audience, and you also go out for funding for your organizations.
Oh, I do that, yeah. So.
And you secure the bag, okay?
I
You
help.
secure the
I definitely
funding.
help. I definitely help. But
So
that's another thing. Absolutely.
talk to us about that part on how you are just that one and you come with a strategy and a plan and you walk out with the bag. We need to hear about that.
Oh, I think that let me talk about two phases of that, right? So I do want to tell you that I think, at least I think this about myself, and I think that most people should think this about themselves, is that you have to be contemporary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about, again, change, holding on to a certain thought process or music or feeling that you had at a certain age, right? And that brings comfort, actually. I mean, I do understand that that can bring comfort, but I think that it's more important to be in sync with cultural change, to be in sync with the latest sounds, the latest understanding of art, the latest, feelings of how people interact. I think it's important to be contemporary. So let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this idea of fundraising, because we all have to do it in some way. For me, the first start is really to have a vision that you believe in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no one will ask you to do this. I mean, they may, but really you want to be ahead of that. You want to, like when I entered the company I'm at, I've been there about a year and a quarter. My first week was just visioning what could we be, right? And really believing that we could be that, and then thinking about how to get there, right? And by the way, this is not a static thing, right? I mean, you do modify this, but you need to start with that. And if you have started with that, when you talk to others in a way that encourages them to think positively about your company or to invest in them or to be a part of it, like maybe be an advisor or to help you along a journey, you have to start with a vision that you truly believe in. And then if you believe in something, you can communicate it with what you're using, authenticity, right? Mm-hmm. You're not making a story up. You're not thinking maybe you really won't get there and people will pick up on that. You just have to really be grounded in what you believe. And by the way, stick to that, because people will ask you to do things that you can't. And be honest. Hey, this is our vision. This is our path. And if it's what you believe in too, we can take this journey together. It goes beyond just the company, right? I mean, this is a fundamental process to almost anything you do, right? Even as simple as getting a job, like vision what you want to be in that role. Where is your career really going to go? What would you imagine for yourself? And I'm not saying everything will run it perfectly, but you do have to start with a vision. And I'm not sure that people always do. I think this is important. So when it comes to fundraising, securing funds, I know you're very entrepreneurial self. I know that you're certainly deep in this, and you do this, right? Start with, what is it that you really want to do for the world? What is it that you want to do? In my case, for human health, how are you going to get there? Why is the science you're doing going to differentiate versus what others are doing? And what is your vision for building and getting there? Investors, partners, that will resonate with them. And most people invest in honesty, integrity, and actually straightforward truth, good or bad, right? I mean, I think that's another part that's important to think about. So,
Great. I guess we're coming down to a close, but I want you to, if you can leave anything to this world, what would that basically look like for you?
If I could leave something to the world.
If you can leave anything to the world, whether it be advice, personal testimony, whether it be direction, what does that look like to you?
I think there's a couple things I would say, and I know we're almost out of time. I think, again, the world will tell you to turn down opportunities because you'll be too diffuse and, you won't be focused. But I actually would say just the opposite. Be willing to accept opportunities, maybe that even others don't want, and try to make the most out of it. And the ones that don't work, move on, right? Yep. And, I think that's one. The other, I would say, is really try to live in the present moment. Don't fret too much about the future. Don't beat yourself up about the past, but live in the present moment and be the best you can in that moment is the other thing I'd say. So I think short on time, those are the two things I would say. Right?
Well, I want to say that was absolutely a wonderful closing. This is James Etta James, your host on Change Builds Authenticity Podcast. Thank you, Rick, for that wonderful testimony on how you put your academia life, and you talk about chemist as a chemist, but you use authenticity just to describe how you work with people, how you connect with people. And that's what life is all about. People trust others when they are authentic, honest, and they live a life of integrity. And so that's just what authenticity is all about. I want to thank you for joining us on Change Builds Authenticity Podcast. Until next time.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Hey, this is Change Builds Authenticity Podcast.